Hi, thank you for watching Digging to China. I'm Dong Shong. If you have not done so already, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much. Despite their differences, US President Joe Biden has continued his predecessor's hard line toward Beijing. Biden, like former US President Donald Trump, believes the United States must decouple from China by reducing US dependence on Chinese products and supply chains for both economic and national security reasons. Biden is not alone in this conviction. Moves to put distance between the two economies are gaining support among Democrats and Republicans alike. So far, Biden has built on the Trump administration's decoupling efforts, albeit with softer rhetoric. Last June, the White House outlined a comprehensive plan for boosting production at home to reduce Washington's dependence on fragile global supply chains, especially those originating in China. It focused mostly on critical industries like semiconductors and rare earth minerals. Wall Street Journal reported that the Pentagon is intensifying efforts to decouple U.S. defense companies' global supply chain from China. The Defense Department said it has started using artificial intelligence to improve the way it analyzes whether aircraft parts, electronics, and raw materials used by U.S. military contractors originate in China and other potential adversaries. Defense contractors have said they are weaning themselves off microelectronics and specialized metals from China. In the US, new facilities are under development to process rare earth minerals. China's defense budget has climbed 72% between 2012 and 2021, and China's military is the main threat driving Pentagon's policy and its own spending. That growth is helping to drive increased US spending on high-end weaponry, including long-range missiles and nuclear submarines. However, Defense Department leaders have said the US is losing its technological advantage in key areas such as satellites and missiles. US defense companies also expect additional military spending in the coming years, in part because of the arms shipped from Western countries to help Ukraine fight Russia's invasion. Relying on China for circuit boards or Russia for titanium makes no sense. In early September, the Pentagon stopped accepting new F-35 combat jets made by Lockheed Martin. Why? Because they found that these F-35 jets contained magnets sourced from Honeywell International, and these magnets were made with metal alloys produced in China. Honeywell disclosed to the Pentagon in recent weeks that engine components it made for the jets contained two alloys sourced from China that were turned into magnets. The company said it had identified an alternative supplier, but it didn't give details. Honeywell said it remains committed to supplying high-quality products, and Lockheed Martin said production continued at its plant in Fort Worth, Texas. The F-35 incident was a setback for the Pentagon's efforts to manage contractors' supply chain and identify potential vulnerabilities. In recent months, Air Force and Army acquisition officials had said that ongoing efforts to minimize or eliminate Chinese content hadn't interrupted any programs. During the Trump administration, a number of Pentagon studies had identified increasing reliance on China and other overseas supplies. The COVID-19 pandemic exposed how fragile supply chains have become, even for high-end weapons. China remains the source for materials and components, including computer chips, rare earth minerals used to make magnets, and the chemicals used in explosives. One of the biggest concerns is the US's reliance on China for 80% of rare earth elements, sometimes called technology minerals. China has invested heavily in mining and refining rare earth over the past decades, and it dominates the global supply chain. To develop domestic production, the Pentagon has awarded 2 contracts to Lynas Rare Earth Corporation to co-develop a US refinery using minerals imported from Australia. The refinery is expected to be open in Texas by 2025. EU is following suit. In mid-September, the European Union proposed a ban on products made using forced labor. It doesn't name China, but alleged forced labor in the country's Xinjiang region is clearly a main target. A UN expert published a report saying it is reasonable to conclude that the forced labor has taken place in Xinjiang, and the UN Human Rights Agency said China has committed crimes against Uyghurs and other Muslim minorities. The proposed law looks less harsh than its US equivalent. The US legislation puts the burden on importers to prove that products from Xinjiang aren't made with forced labor, an incredibly high bar. The EU proposal doesn't. Products would only be blocked at the conclusion of an investigation. That could change though, as the proposal needs approval from the Council of the European Union and the European Parliament. It could be years before the proposal becomes law, but it will nonetheless add pressure for companies to reassess supply chain now, especially since the US law is already in effect. Such rearrangements could be challenging in some cases. For example, in the solar supply chain, which is dominated by China, Xinjiang is a major producer of polysilicon, a crucial precursor of solar cells. Xinjiang has abundant coal supply as well as solar and wind power. According to Morgan Stanley, Europe is China's single largest market for solar exports. Chinese solar module shipments to Europe rose 137% in the first half this year, according to the bank. Another proposal from Europe tries to directly address such dominance, which also extends to the processing of lithium and other minerals critical for green energy applications. If passed, the law would speed up domestic production, processing, and recycling of such raw materials. Europe's current energy crisis due to over-reliance on Russia for oil and gas has helped push this proposal. But such onshoring will take years, and a full-scale relocation of manufacturing jobs back to the West is unrealistic. Friendlier or closer countries such as Vietnam and Mexico will probably be big beneficiaries. But the rapid globalization of the past few decades will take a pause. Also, the Western world is waking up to an obvious truth. The Chinese Communist Party is a deeply unpleasant regime that is determined to achieve world domination. CCP is most certainly no friend of the West. This realization should have struck everybody 20 years ago, but the commercial and political elites in the West were too naive, too trusting, or too greedy. Decoupling is happening and will continue happening. It is a painful and expensive process for both sides. If you are doing business in China or with China, you should often remind yourself with this: relations between China and the West are not getting any better, and they will only get worse. I'm not saying it as a political statement. It is a matter of fact. Thank you for watching. Please leave a comment and subscribe to my channel. Just click the subscribe button right here. I'll see you again shortly. Until then, be well.